They buried him with his phone. 6 years later, I got a voicemail from that same number. And it wasn't just static, it was him whispering something I wasn't supposed to hear. I know people love to tell ghost stories that start with someone dying tragically or a haunted house with a dark past. But this one doesn't begin like that. This one starts with a cracked Samsung Galaxy S4, a prepaid Verizon plan, and the worst winter storm Ohio had seen in a decade. My dad, Harold, passed away in December 2016. Heart attack, sudden, brutal. He was shoveling the driveway in front of the house we grew up in, slipped on the ice, and didn't make it to the front door. They said he died before he hit the ground. It was the kind of clean ending that doesn't give you time to say goodbye, or time to feel anything but shock. We buried him with his phone. I know that sounds strange, but it was his wish. In his will, handwritten and half-finished, he asked to be buried with a few things. His wedding band, a pocket knife he carried since he was 16, and his phone. He didn't say why, and we didn't question it. Maybe it was symbolic. Maybe it was just habit. But we did it. 6 years passed. I moved to Columbus, started a new job, tried to leave everything about my old life behind. Grief fades like an old photograph, dull and quiet. Sometimes I'd forget the sound of his voice unless I really focused. That kind of forgetting leaves a pit in your stomach. Then 2 weeks ago I got a missed call. It was a Wednesday. I remember because I was microwaving leftover chili from the night before, half watching a rerun of some home renovation show. My phone buzzed once. Unknown number. Area code 740. That's where my dad lived. Where we lived. I didn't think much of it at first. Scams, spam, maybe someone trying to collect on some forgotten debt. But then the voicemail notification appeared. I hesitated. Something in my gut told me not to listen. But I did. The voice was static at first, thick and warped like someone drowning in wind. Then it broke through. Eli, it was my name. Whispered. Eli, it's me. I dropped the phone. I swear to God, I dropped it like it burned me. I hadn't heard his voice in over half a decade, but there was no mistaking it. That calm, raspy tone, always low, like he didn't want to disturb anyone. It was unmistakably him. My dad, Harold. The voicemail was 33 seconds long. Most of it was silent. Not empty, but dense, like something was there but choosing not to speak. At the end, he whispered one last word. Attic. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat. I just kept playing the message over and over, trying to convince myself it was a prank, that someone had found an old recording and spoofed the number. But the number wasn't spoofed. It was real, registered, still active. When I called it back, it rang once, then disconnected. No voicemail, no human response. Just one ring, then silence. I went to work the next day, but I wasn't really there. My body moved, typed, smiled when expected, but my mind stayed glued to that message. I replayed it in my head like a song I didn't ask to learn. The next day, I drove back to my childhood home in Newark. My mom had moved to Arizona a few years after Dad died, sold the house to some newlyweds who loved character homes, and had never fixed the attic stairs. I hadn't stepped foot in that place since we cleared out his clothes and photos for donation. I parked across the street. It looked the same, a little more paint peeled from the porch. The mailbox had been replaced, but it was still the house where we carved pumpkins, where I broke my wrist falling off the garage roof, where Dad once caught me sneaking in drunk and didn't say a word, just made coffee and sat next to me until I stopped shaking. I didn't have a plan, just a feeling, a sickening pull like gravity in reverse. I didn't knock. I didn't talk to the new owners. I waited until nightfall, and I broke in. The window in the laundry room still didn't lock. It never had. I slipped inside like a memory, quietly, stupidly. The house smelled different, like lavender and vinegar. All the photos were gone. The furniture was rearranged, but the air still remembered us. I crept through the hallway, past the stairs, past the door to the basement where Dad kept his workbench and whiskey. The attic entrance was in the hallway ceiling. Still the same warped panel, still the same cheap pull-string light. I pulled down the ladder and climbed up. The attic had always been weird. Not in a haunted way, just off. Slanted ceiling, one window that never opened, dust that stuck to your skin like tar. We used it for holiday decorations and old boxes. No one ever stayed long. Even as a kid, I hated going up there. But now it felt worse. Colder. Heavier. I clicked on my phone flashlight. The beam cut through the dark like it was made of oil. I expected nothing. Maybe some mouse droppings, a raccoon nest, leftover ornaments. Instead, I saw a box. New. Clean. Placed perfectly in the center. It had my name on it. Just my name. Yellow scrawled in thick black marker, crooked and fast. My knees nearly buckled. I knelt beside it. The cardboard was thick, heavy. No dust. No signs of age. Like it had just been placed there yesterday. My hands shook as I opened the top. Inside, there was a cassette tape. A small wooden cross. A folded envelope with my father's handwriting. And a phone. His phone. The one we buried him with. I didn't touch anything at first. Just sat there frozen, staring at that box like it might bite. My name on it, the objects inside. None of it made sense. It had been 6 years. The phone should have decomposed with the body. The cassette tape? No one in our family ever used those. And the envelope, the handwriting was unmistakably his. I finally picked up the phone. Same cracked screen. Same blue case with the faded sticker that read "World's Okayest Dad." The battery was long dead, of course. I turned it over in my hand, half expecting it to turn on by itself, or for the screen to light up with my name. But it stayed cold. I put it down and picked up the cassette tape next. No label. No markings. Just a plain black shell, and a sense of dread that sunk deeper the longer I held it. I didn't have a player, but I knew where I could find one. I slipped the tape in my jacket pocket and left everything else behind, closing the attic like I'd never been there. I didn't even lock the window on the way out. Back in my car, I sat for a full 5 minutes before starting the engine. My reflection in the rearview mirror didn't look like mine. Pale, eyes too wide, hands trembling. I drove through Newark like a stranger. Nothing looked familiar. Not the gas stations. Not the traffic lights. Not the snow-covered trees. It was like the whole town had moved on without me. I stopped at a thrift store on the edge of town and found an old tape player for $5. I didn't test it. I didn't want to know if it worked until I was back home, alone. I drove straight back to Columbus and locked every door behind me. My apartment was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that hums just beneath your skin, like something is holding its breath with you. I put the tape player on the kitchen counter, sat down across from it, and stared. I don't know how long I sat there. Eventually I pressed play. The sound was faint at first. Static. Then something deeper. Like water dripping in a cavern. Then breathing. Long, shaky, like someone trying not to be heard. And then, Eli, his voice again. Slower this time. Weaker. As if it were being pushed through something thick and unnatural. I don't have much time. There was a pause. Then a shuffling noise, like paper being moved. I thought this would be enough. I thought if I left the box, if I whispered the right words, maybe it wouldn't follow. More static. Then something that chilled me deeper than the voice. A growl. Not an animal. Not human. Something ancient and wet and furious, buried beneath layers of sound. You need to leave it alone, he said. Don't listen to the message. Don't open the phone. Don't go looking. The tape clicked. Reversed. Started again. I hit stop. I sat there for what felt like hours. It made no sense. He sounded terrified. He never sounded terrified, not even when he called me from the hospital the night before his surgery, not even when Mom left. Something had broken him in that recording. Something was wrong. I knew I should have thrown the tape away, or burned it, or driven to the nearest church and begged someone to bless it. But I didn't. I went back to the box. The envelope was sealed with wax. Red. Deep. Pressed with what looked like a wedding ring. His probably. My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter. Just one page. Eli, if you're reading this, then it means the message got through. I'm sorry. I tried to stop it. I tried to keep it with me in the ground, but it won't stay buried. It wants to be heard. It needs ears. Your ears. I didn't choose this. I didn't mean to pass it on. But I'm out of time. It feeds on attention. On memory. On blood. If you ignore it, it grows louder. If you listen, it gets stronger. Do not answer. Do not speak back. And whatever you do, do not play the message after midnight. There was no signature. Just a single word at the bottom. Forgive. I dropped the letter. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst through my ribs. I looked at the clock on the microwave. 11:52 p.m. The phone was still on the table. Dead, but not silent. It buzzed. Just once. Then the screen flickered to life. No charger. No battery life. But there it was. Lit up. And there, at the top, a notification. Voicemail. The timestamp read 12:01 a.m. And it was from my number. My number. That was impossible. I stared at it, hands cold and useless. The screen dimmed, then lit up again. The voicemail remained. Waiting. Pressing. Daring me to play it. I didn't. Not yet. I grabbed a towel and wrapped the phone in it, then stuffed it into the back of my closet under a pile of shoes. I could still hear the buzz through the wall. Faint. Persistent. The next morning, I tried to tell myself it was a malfunction. A glitch. Maybe the phone had a charge left in it, somehow. Maybe it had stored something weird in memory. I almost believed it, until I got to work. My office phone had a red blinking light. Voicemail. I picked up the receiver, typed in my extension, listened. It was the same recording, word for word. My name, his voice, the growl, the warning. But this time, there was one more thing at the end. A new phrase. You shouldn't have listened. I left the office early that day. Said I wasn't feeling well, which wasn't entirely a lie. My skin felt too tight, like it didn't fit right anymore. Like I was being stretched from the inside by something I couldn't see. I drove home in silence, no music, no podcast, just the sound of tires on wet asphalt and my breath echoing in the cab. I wanted to believe that somehow, some way, there was a logical explanation. Maybe the voicemail got copied from my cell. Maybe my phone backed it up years ago, and just now decided to spit it back out. Maybe grief was playing tricks on me. Or maybe I was finally cracking. But deep down, I knew better. That voice on the line, it wasn't just a voice. It pressed. It lingered. It watched. When I got home, the apartment smelled strange. Damp wood and old copper. The kind of smell you'd find in a place that hadn't been opened in years. I checked the closet where I'd buried the phone. Still there. Still wrapped. Still humming. That night, I dreamed about my dad. He was standing at the edge of a field behind our old house. Except the house was gone, and the field went on forever. He was holding the phone to his ear, staring into the dark. His mouth moved, but I couldn't hear anything. I started walking toward him, yelling, trying to reach him. But the ground stretched beneath me like rubber. The more I moved, the farther away he got. Then he turned, slowly, and looked directly at me. His eyes were empty. Not like sockets, just blank. Like the memories had been wiped clean. And then he said something. Don't listen. I woke up with blood in my ears. Not a lot. Just enough to stain the pillowcase and make me freeze. My ears ached like I'd been holding them shut for hours, trying to block out some unbearable sound. The voicemail was still on the phone. Still unread. But something had changed. There was a new message. I didn't open it. I didn't even touch the phone. I wrapped it tighter, duct taped the towel shut, and shoved it in a box. Then I locked the box in the trunk of my car and parked 2 blocks away. And still I heard it. Buzzing. Calling. Repeating my name. I started hearing it in other places too. In the rustle of the shower curtain. In the hum of the fridge. In the static between channels. Always faint. Always distant. But always there. That weekend, I went back to Newark. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I had to go back to where it started. I thought maybe if I destroyed the attic, burned the tape, smashed the phone, it would end. I got there just after midnight. The house was dark. Silent. The porch light was off. The new owners were clearly gone for the weekend, judging by the piled-up newspapers and the frozen Amazon box on the stoop. I climbed through the same laundry room window, heart racing harder than before. My breath clouded in the cold, even inside. The attic was exactly how I left it. Ladder down. Dust swirling in the beam of my flashlight. The box was still there, but the phone was missing. So was the tape. Only the cross remained. I picked it up, almost out of instinct. The wood felt warm, like it had been held, like it had been clutched in a closed hand for a long, long time. And carved into the back, shallow but deliberate, was a name. My dad's name. Harold. Underneath it, another line. All who listen must speak. I dropped it. That night, I stayed in a motel off Route 16. Old place. Peeling paint, buzzing sign. A clerk who looked like he hadn't slept since 1983. I didn't care. I just needed a place to think. To breathe. To stop hearing him in every crack and creak. But around 3:30 a.m., the room phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Then my cell buzzed. Unknown number. Voicemail. Then the motel room phone again. 3 times. 3 messages. I didn't listen. I packed up and left before sunrise, drove through the morning fog until I crossed into Indiana. I threw the motel phone in a dumpster behind a diner. Didn't matter. I already knew. It had followed me. When I got back to Columbus, the apartment door was unlocked. Not open. Not broken. Just unlocked. I know I'd locked it. I always check it twice. Inside, nothing was missing. Nothing was moved. Except for one thing. A third voicemail was waiting on my work phone. No caller ID. No timestamp. Just a single file. When I clicked it open, the screen glitched. The lights flickered. Then silence. And then a whisper. "You hear me now?" Click. I've tried everything. Changed numbers. Burned the tape player. Deleted every voicemail. Bought a new phone. Left the apartment for 3 days straight. But it keeps coming back. Always him. Always that voice, just a little closer. A little more urgent. A little less human. And last night, the final straw, I got a message on my TV. No cable. No antenna. Just black screen. Then words typed out, grainy white letters. Play it again. And now I'm starting to understand. It's not just about listening. It's about sharing. I stayed home from work the next day. Turned off my phone. Unplugged every device in the apartment. Even took the batteries out of the smoke detectors. Didn't matter. The message still found its way through. It started in the mirror. Fogged glass from a hot shower, streaks trailing down like fingers had been pressed against it. At first, I thought it was a trick of the steam. But then I looked closer. Etched into the condensation in jagged childlike letters, "Listen." I didn't touch it. Didn't wipe it. Just stepped out of the bathroom and shut the door behind me. 10 minutes later, the lights started flickering again. I hadn't turned them on. My laptop powered up on its own. The speakers cracked with static. The fan screamed. And then his voice spilled out, distorted and low, like it was being pulled through a tunnel of smoke. "Eli, they're listening now." I slammed the lid shut, yanked the plug out of the wall, and threw the whole thing into the bathtub. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up hours later to complete silence. No hum from the fridge. No ticking from the hallway clock. Just stillness. Like time itself had stopped moving. And then I heard a knock at the door. Not loud. Not hurried. Just one single knock. Then a pause. Then another. I didn't move. Just held my breath. Whoever, or whatever, was out there didn't knock again. But a few seconds later, the voicemail tone on my phone buzzed again. Even though it was still turned off. Even though the SIM card had been removed. There was only one new message. No caller ID. No timestamp. Just the word, near. I didn't listen. I couldn't. Instead, I packed a duffel bag, grabbed what little cash I had, and drove until I hit Kentucky. I rented a cabin off a side road outside Hazard. No cell service. No Wi-Fi. No power. It was the closest thing to silence I'd had in weeks. For 2 days, nothing happened. No voices. No dreams. No messages. I started to believe maybe it had stopped. Maybe distance worked. Maybe this thing needed technology to reach me. Maybe I could outrun it. But on the third night, the landline rang. I didn't even know it had one. I hadn't seen it in the cabin until it screamed into the dark, one shrill note that made the whole place feel colder. I didn't pick up, but the phone didn't stop ringing. Not for hours. I pulled the cord from the wall and went outside, sat on the porch in the freezing dark, hoping the night air would shake the dread off me. That's when I saw it. The voicemail light was blinking on my car dashboard. The car was off. The keys were in my pocket. I walked over slowly, opened the door. The screen flashed once. One new voicemail. I reached for the key, thinking maybe if I turned the ignition, it would reset everything. But the car radio turned on without it. White noise again. Then the same low, crawling growl beneath it, and a voice that didn't sound like my dad anymore. Didn't sound like anyone. Just breath, syllables, words forced through something that wasn't human anymore. "You can't run. They've heard you." The light above the cabin porch flickered once and died. My hands shook so bad I dropped the keys. Then the radio cut off. Dead silence again. I stayed in the car until the sun came up. That morning, I drove to the nearest pawn shop and bought an old microcassette recorder. Same kind Dad used to carry for notes and lists. I recorded myself explaining everything. What happened? When it started? What I'd heard? What I found? I told myself it was just in case. In case something happened. In case I didn't make it out. I planned to mail it anonymously to a paranormal podcast I used to follow. one of those late-night conspiracy shows. I figured if they got the message out, maybe someone would believe it. Maybe someone smarter than me would know how to stop it. But when I hit play to double-check the recording, it wasn't my voice. It was the message again. Same words, same tone, same unnatural weight behind it. It had replaced me. It had overwritten my voice with its own. That's when I realized what it wanted. It didn't want to kill me. At least, not yet. It wanted me to spread it, to play the message out loud, to get someone else to hear it. It feeds on that moment of disbelief. That second when someone thinks this can't be real, and they lean in anyway. I started thinking about everyone I'd spoken to in the past few weeks. The barista at the coffee shop, the delivery guy, my boss, my neighbor who always knocks too loud. Had they heard it? Had he? And then something even worse hit me. What if they hadn't heard the message yet? But what if I'd already passed it on just by telling the story? Just by thinking about it too hard? Because lately, I'd noticed the looks people gave me. How the barista paused after handing me my cup. How my neighbor stopped knocking. How my boss started whispering to himself when he thought no one was around. Like they were hearing something I wasn't anymore. Like the message had moved on and left me behind. But that's not the end. Not yet. Because last night, when I turned on the faucet in the bathroom sink, the water came out black. And in the mirror, there were no letters this time. Only my face. Smiling. Not me. It. I haven't seen my own reflection in 3 days. Every mirror shows something else now. Not just the smile. Not just the wrong version of me. But glimpses, brief flashes, of places I've never been. A hospital room lit only by static from a broken TV. A basement lined with rotary phones ringing all at once. A frozen field where dozens of people stand with old flip phones to their ears, unmoving, staring at nothing. They look like they're waiting for something. Or someone. I covered the mirrors. All of them. Even the toaster. Didn't matter. That thing in the reflection, me but not me, started showing up in windows, in puddles, even in the stainless steel of a spoon. And every time, it's smiling wider. I tried calling my mom. That was a mistake. The moment she answered, the line shrieked like a fire alarm, and I heard my own voice on the other end, whispering her name like it was a threat. I threw the phone out the window, blocked her number, tried to forget, but then I got an email. From her address. Subject line. Why did you let him in? No text in the body. Just an audio file named listen.mp3. I didn't open it. I unplugged the router. Smashed the laptop. Still it downloaded on my phone. I didn't press play. I didn't have to. Because I already knew what it said. I left the cabin that night. Didn't pack. Didn't turn off the lights. Just got in the car and drove west with no direction. Like if I kept moving fast enough, I'd outrun the sound. By morning, I was across the border into Illinois. The car was running low on gas, so I pulled into a rest stop. Empty. Half the lights were out. Soda machine flickering like a dying star. I sat at a picnic table and stared into the woods behind the building, hoping the cold would ground me. That's when the payphone started ringing. I hadn't even noticed it was there. Mounted on the wall outside the restroom, rusted and cracked like it hadn't worked in years. It rang 6 times. Then it stopped. Then my car radio came on. Full volume. Same message. Listen. 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 And under the voice, something else. A second voice. Lower. Faster. Saying things I couldn't make out. Like it wasn't meant for me. That's when I understood. The message wasn't alone anymore. It had company. I made it to a cheap motel in Peoria just before dark. Paid cash. Gave a fake name. Didn't turn on the lights. I sat on the carpet, back to the door, phone in a metal drawer under the mattress. That's where I started hearing the others. Whispers. From the walls. From the ceiling fan. From the drain in the tub. Not my dad's voice anymore. Dozens of voices. All overlapping. Some male. Some female. Some that didn't sound human at all. Like they were too old. Too deep. They didn't ask me to listen. They were already inside. The next morning, I checked out and headed toward an old church I remembered visiting once as a kid with my dad. A Catholic church, the kind with wooden pews and a priest who still spoke Latin during confession. I didn't think it would save me, but I had to try. The priest, Father Dale, wasn't surprised to see me. Said I looked familiar. Said I had a sound to me. I asked what he meant. He just pointed to his ear and said, "There are voices you can't unhear." I broke down, told him everything. The voicemail. The phone. My father. the dream, the reflection. He nodded slowly, and then he led me to a back room with thick stone walls and no electronics. No lights, just candles and the smell of cold incense. He placed an old cassette player on the table, told me to press play. I asked what was on it. He said, the first recording, the one that started all this. I asked where it came from. He said, we found it buried inside a wall, in a condemned radio station outside Detroit. The tape was unmarked, just like mine. I pressed play, and it was my voice. Not similar, not close. Mine, saying things I hadn't said yet, words I hadn't thought yet, stories I hadn't lived yet. And in the background, the same growl, now louder, closer. The tape ended with one final line. You're not the first. Father Dale didn't say anything. He just handed me a small wooden box and told me not to open it until the right time. Then he turned and walked away. Never saw him again. I drove for hours after that. Didn't stop until I found another abandoned cabin in the woods near the Mississippi River. No neighbors, no phone, no mirrors. And that's where I opened the box. Inside was a tiny metal bell, a slip of paper folded into thirds, and one sentence written in red ink. When you hear your voice on someone else's lips, ring the bell. I didn't understand it. Not then. But now I think I do. Because tonight, someone knocked on the cabin door. And when I asked who it was, a woman answered. Her voice sounded like mine. Exactly like mine. Word for word. She spoke like someone who had lived inside my throat. Every word perfectly mirrored my cadence, my rhythm, my pauses. No emotion, no variation. Just my voice coming from the other side of the cabin door. I didn't open it. I couldn't move. I watched the door like it might bleed. Her footsteps shifted on the porch, slow, deliberate. Then silence. But she hadn't left. I knew because the wind outside died. The trees stopped swaying. The world, for a brief second, held its breath. And then she whispered again. Eli, let me in. I backed into the corner of the room, gripping the small metal bell from the priest's box. My hand trembled as I lifted it. The cabin was so quiet. I could hear my own blood rushing in my ears. I rang it. One single chime. It echoed longer than it should have. Bounced through the cabin like it had weight. Like it had purpose. Then the doorknob stopped turning. The footsteps receded. The pressure in the air lifted. The wind returned. But the silence inside me stayed. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of fear. Because of knowing. Something had changed. The message had learned. It had tried to wear my voice like a coat. Tried to make someone else believe it was me. The bell had worked, for now. But I could feel it scratching at the edge again. The next morning, I checked my phone. It had no signal, no power, nothing. But there was still a voicemail waiting. New. Unread. No number. No timestamp. Just the word. End. I pressed play. This time it was different. No voice. No static. Just breathing. Not mine. Not Dad's. Something deeper. Something ancient. And beneath it, a low pulse. Not a sound exactly. A feeling. Like it was beating inside my skull. Then the words came, not spoken but carved into my thoughts. You listened. Now you speak. I dropped the phone, but the message kept playing, through the walls, through the air, through me. My mouth moved without permission. My tongue shaped sounds I didn't recognize. My throat ached like it was being pulled from the inside out. I screamed. I begged. I burned the phone. Didn't matter. The message had taken root. I drove to the edge of town. I found a payphone. I dialed a number at random. When someone answered, I said nothing. But the message spoke for me. And when it finished, the line didn't disconnect. The person on the other end whispered my name. And then they started to speak. I hung up. But it was too late. I had passed it on. It was no longer in me. It was through me. Now I know the truth. It was never about a phone. Or a voicemail. Or even my father. That was just the hook. The way in. What it really wanted, what it always wanted, was a voice. A mouth. An echo. It travels not through wires or sound waves, but through memory. Through fear. Through the space left behind when someone you love is gone, and you'd give anything to hear them again. Anything. Even your soul. Even your voice. That's why I'm recording this now. Not to warn you. Not to help you. But because it's still hungry. And I can feel it pressing against the edges of this message. Slipping into your ears. Whispering just beneath the frequency you can hear. Soon, you'll dream of your own voice speaking without you. Soon, you'll see reflections that aren't yours. And when the phone rings, you'll answer, because curiosity always wins, because grief always whispers louder than fear, because you're still listening, and now it knows your name too. That was today's story. If you made it this far, let me know what you thought in the comments. Also, tell me if you've ever heard of anything similar happening near where you live. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There are plenty more chilling stories coming your way. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.